The crystalline corridors of the Imperial Palace gleamed under the light of 3 suns. Tejo wiped down the viewing gallery windows with practiced efficiency, his reflection barely visible against a vast starscape beyond. At 35, he had grown accustomed to being invisible. He was just another human maintenance worker in a galaxy that barely noticed his kind. Humans had only joined galactic society 50 years ago. Most of them still worked simple jobs, building their reputations one day at a time. Tejo did not mind this. After what he had lost, being invisible felt like a blessing. Nobody asked questions. Nobody expected anything from him. He could simply exist, moving from one cleaning task to another, letting the days blur together into forgettable routine. The viewing gallery was his favorite assignment. The massive windows looked out into deep space, showing distant stars and colorful nebulas that seemed to stretch forever. Sometimes he would pause his work and stare out at the endless darkness, wondering if Mayan could see the same stars from wherever she was now. The thought always made his chest tighten. So he would return to his cleaning, letting the repetitive motions quiet his mind. The sound of small footsteps echoed behind him. Tejo turned around, expecting to see one of the palace staff members. Instead, he saw a child standing in the doorway. She was tiny, with pearl-like skin that shimmered faintly in the light. Her large violet eyes seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. She wore silver and blue robes that marked her as royalty. Tejo's heart jumped. This was Princess Nari, the Emperor's daughter. Or rather, the late Emperor's daughter. Everyone in the palace knew the story. Emperor Kale had died 3 months ago in what officials called a shuttle accident. The princess had not spoken a single word since that terrible day. Tejo froze, uncertain what to do. Should he bow? Should he leave? Should he call for the guards? Palace protocol for maintenance workers who accidentally encountered unsupervised royalty was unclear. He had never needed to know it before. The princess stared at him. Her small lips trembled. Then she whispered something that changed everything. "You look like Daddy." The words hung in the air between them. Tejo felt his breath catch in his throat. He had no idea how to respond. Before he could say anything, rapid footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. "Nari, Princess Nari, where are you?" Empress Hannah swept into the gallery like a force of nature. Her flowing robes trailed behind her like liquid starlight. 6 heavily armed guards flanked her on both sides, their expressions mixing relief with alarm. The Empress was breathtaking to look at. She stood tall and regal, with the same violet eyes as her daughter, but hardened by months of grief and the weight of ruling an empire alone. She stopped suddenly when she saw her daughter standing before the human janitor. "Nari, you must not run from your attendants," Hannah began, her voice carrying the practiced authority of someone used to being obeyed. Then she stopped speaking. Her eyes widened slightly. Her daughter was crying. Not the silent tears that had become constant these past 3 months, but real sobs that shook her small shoulders. And she was speaking, actually speaking real words out loud. "He looks like Daddy," Nari repeated, pointing at Tejo with a small trembling hand. "Mama, he looks like Daddy." Hannah's breath caught in her chest. The palace physicians had warned her. They said Nari might never speak again. The trauma of losing her father so suddenly had been too much for such a young mind. Hannah had spent countless sleepless nights sitting beside her daughter's bed, begging her to say something, anything. She had brought in the best therapists from across the empire. Nothing had worked. Until now. The Empress looked at the human janitor properly for the first time. He was nothing like her late husband. Kale had been Velteron, tall and luminescent, a being who seemed made of light and grace. This human was completely ordinary. He had dark hair that needed cutting, warm brown eyes, and a medium build. His maintenance uniform was clean, but worn from years of use. Yet something in his expression gave Hannah pause. There was a gentleness there, a deep sadness that mirrored her own. The way he looked at Nari was not with the careful political distance that most palace staff maintained around royalty. He looked at her with genuine concern, as if she were simply a hurting child who needed comfort rather than a princess who required formal protocols. "Your name?" Hannah asked, forcing her voice to remain controlled and steady. Tejo bowed awkwardly. He still held his cleaning cloth in one hand. Teho, Your Majesty, I work for Galactic Maintenance Solutions. I apologize if I have caused any disturbance. You have not caused a disturbance. Hannah knelt beside her daughter, placing a gentle hand on the child's back. Nari, sweetheart, why do you say he looks like Daddy? The child wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Her voice was small but clear. His smile, Mama. When Daddy was sad but tried to be happy for me, he smiled like that. The sad, happy smile. Hannah looked up sharply at Teho. The human's expression was indeed conflicted. She could see compassion there, mixed with bone-deep sorrow that no amount of time seemed able to heal. 3 days had passed since the encounter in the viewing gallery. Empress Hannah now stood before the Imperial Council. Knowing that what she was about to propose would cause an uproar, she had prepared herself for this moment, rehearsing her words carefully. Still, her heart beat faster as she faced a semicircle of powerful council members. You wish to employ a human janitor as the princess's companion? Chancellor Vex's voice dripped with disgust. He was an older Velteron with silver skin and calculating eyes that missed nothing. Your Majesty, surely grief has not clouded your judgment this severely. Hannah kept her voice calm and steady. My daughter spoke for the first time in 3 months. She ate a full meal yesterday for the first time since her father's death. She smiled. All of this happened because of a single encounter with this human. A lucky coincidence, nothing more, Vex replied dismissively. There are dozens of trained Velteron counselors available, professionals who understand our culture and customs. Why would you choose an alien maintenance worker over them? Because those professionals have failed, Hannah said sharply, repeatedly. For 3 months I watched my daughter waste away. None of your counselors could reach her. Admiral Kira, head of the Imperial Fleet, leaned forward with interest. She was one of the few council members Hannah truly trusted. What exactly do we know about this human? What is his background? The security chief activated a holographic display that filled the center of the council chamber. Data scrolled past as he spoke. His name is Teho, age 35, former Earth military with decorated service in the Mars conflicts. After leaving the military, he became a child psychologist and worked in that field for several years. 5 years ago, his wife died in a colony ship accident. She was 7 months pregnant at the time. He resigned from his position shortly after and took work as a maintenance contractor. His record is completely clean. No criminal history, no political affiliations, no debts. The council chamber fell silent. Even Chancellor Vex looked momentarily caught off guard by this information. He understands loss, Hannah said quietly into silence. He understands my daughter's pain because he carries his own pain every single day. That is something no amount of professional training can teach. This sets a dangerous precedent, Vex warned, recovering his composure. Humans have only been part of galactic society for 50 years. They are barely integrated. To elevate one to a position close to the royal family sends a message to the entire empire. I am not elevating him to anything, Hannah replied firmly. I am hiring him as a cultural liaison and companion for my daughter. Nothing more than that. And when the other imperial houses see this decision, when they begin to question your judgment and fitness to rule, Hannah's eyes flash with anger. Let them question all they want. My daughter's well-being is not up for debate. I am her mother before I am an empress. The vote that followed was close. Several council members sided with Vex, arguing that tradition and protocol should not be broken for personal reasons. But Hannah's authority as empress held firm. The proposal passed by a narrow margin. That evening, Teho received an unexpected visitor at his small apartment in the workers' district. A royal messenger stood at his door, dressed in formal palace livery. The Empress requests your presence immediately. A contract has been prepared for your review. At the palace, Hannah met him in a private study away from the curious eyes of the court. The room was smaller and more intimate than Teho had expected. Books lined the walls, and soft light came from floating orbs that hovered near the ceiling. I will not pretend this will be simple, Hannah said, handing him a data pad. The pay is generous, but you will face scrutiny every day. Many members of the court are suspicious of humans. Some are openly hostile. You will likely face insults and deliberate obstacles. Tejo read through the contract terms on the glowing screen. Cultural liaison and companion to Princess Nari. 6-month contract with possibility of extension. The salary listed was more than he had earned in 3 years of maintenance work. "Why me?" he asked, looking up from the pad. "You do not really know me. How can you trust me with your daughter? I know you have suffered a terrible loss. I know my daughter saw something in you that gave her hope for the first time in months. Right now, that is enough for me." Tejo studied the Empress carefully. Beneath her regal bearing and perfect posture, he could see exhaustion in the lines around her eyes. He saw desperation in the way her hands clasped together. But most of all, he saw a mother's fierce love and her willingness to do anything to save her child. "I lost my child before they were born," Tejo said quietly. "I never got to hold them. I never got to help them through their pain or teach them about the world. Maybe I can help your daughter instead. Maybe I can give her what I could not give my own child." Hannah's composure cracked for just a moment. Her eyes grew wet, though she blinked the tears away quickly. "Then you accept the position?" "Yes, I accept." 2 months had passed since Tejo began working with Princess Nari. The royal gardens had become their special place, away from the formal halls and watchful eyes of the palace staff. Today, warm sunlight filtered through the purple leaves of the exotic trees as Nari laughed at something Tejo had said. "Show me again!" she exclaimed, clapping her hands together. Tejo picked up a smooth flat stone from beside the ornamental pond. "You have to find the right kind of stone first. Not too heavy, not too light. It needs to be flat like this." He demonstrated by skipping the stone across the water's surface. It bounced 3 times before sinking. Nari tried with her own stone, but it simply splashed into the water. She giggled at her failure. "It is harder than it looks." "Everything worth doing is hard at first," Tejo said with a gentle smile. "On Earth, my father taught me this when I was about your age. We would go to a lake near our home every weekend. It was our special thing, just the 2 of us." Nari sat down on the grass beside him, unconcerned about getting her expensive robes dirty. Her attendants, watching from a respectful distance, had long since given up trying to keep her pristine during these sessions. "Tell me more about Earth. What was it like growing up there?" Tejo shared stories carefully chosen to teach without preaching. He told her about human resilience, about communities that rebuilt after natural disasters. He spoke about finding joy in small moments, even during difficult times. He described festivals where people celebrated survival and hope. Nari absorbed every word with wide, fascinated eyes. "Do you still miss your wife?" she asked suddenly, with the blunt honesty that only children possess. The question caught Tejo off guard, but he had learned not to hide difficult truths from her. Every single day. "Does the missing ever get better?" Tejo considered this carefully. "It gets different. The pain does not disappear completely, but you learn to carry it. And some days, you remember the happy times more than the sad ones. Some days you can smile when you think about the person you lost, instead of only crying." Nari leaned against his shoulder in a gesture of trust that had taken weeks to develop. "I miss Daddy so much. Sometimes I forget what his voice sounded like, and that makes me feel guilty. Forgetting small details does not mean you love him less." Tejo assured her, "Your father will always be part of who you are, even when specific memories fade." "I think Daddy would have liked you," Nari said softly. The simple statement touched something deep in Tejo's heart. "I would have liked to meet him." Meanwhile, in the Empress's private chambers, Hannah reviewed reports with growing satisfaction. Nari's tutors reported that she was engaging with her lessons again, asking questions and showing curiosity about her studies. The palace physicians confirmed she was eating normally and sleeping through the night without nightmares. The head of household staff noted that the princess laughed frequently and played with her toys again. The transformation was remarkable. A chime at her door interrupted her reading. "Enter," she called. Tejo stepped inside and bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, you summon me?" "Yes." "Please sit." Hannah gestured to a comfortable chair across from her desk. "I wanted to thank you personally for what you have done for my daughter. The change in her is nothing short of miraculous. She is a remarkable child, Teho replied, sitting carefully. She just needed permission to grieve in her own way. She needed someone to tell her that feeling sad was acceptable. Hannah studied him with new appreciation. You gave her that permission, something I, with all my imperial wisdom and resources, could not provide. You were grieving too, Teho said gently. It is very hard to guide someone through darkness when you are lost in it yourself. You cannot be a lighthouse when your own light has gone out. The word struck something profound in Hannah. For 3 months, everyone had focused on Nari's grief, while ignoring hers. Council members demanded decisions. Advisors pushed agendas. Citizens expected strength. No one had acknowledged that she was drowning in her own pain. No one except this quiet human who saw past her crown. Do you ever find peace? Hannah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. After such loss, is peace even possible? Sometimes, Teho answered honestly. In small moments, like watching Nari laugh today while trying to skip stones. Like seeing her face light up when she finally understands something new. Those moments do not erase the pain, but they make it bearable. Their eyes met across the desk. A connection formed between them, fragile but real. 2 wounded souls recognizing each other in ways that had nothing to do with species or status. A sharp knock at the door broke the moment. Captain Soren entered quickly, his expression grave. Your Majesty, forgive the interruption. The Council requires your immediate presence. There has been an incident with the trade negotiations. Hannah stood, instantly transforming back into the Imperial Empress. What kind of incident? Chancellor Vex has called an emergency session. He claims there are serious problems that require your attention immediately. 3 days after the council meeting, Teho was in the royal gardens with Princess Nari as usual. She was showing him a flower she had found, explaining its name in her language. The afternoon seemed peaceful and normal, but something felt wrong to Teho. His old military instincts, dormant for years, suddenly awakened. He noticed 3 figures dressed in maintenance uniforms approaching from different directions. Their clothes looked right, but something about the way they moved was off. They walked with military precision, their eyes constantly scanning. Real maintenance workers shuffled and relaxed. These men moved like predators. Teho's heart rate increased. His mind began calculating distances and angles automatically. Nari, he said quietly, trying to keep his voice calm. Come stand behind me right now. The princess looked confused. But why? I want to show you more flowers. Now, Nari. His sharp tone frightened her, but she obeyed immediately. The lead attacker pulled a plasma blade from beneath his uniform. The weapon hummed with deadly energy. Teho pushed Nari completely behind him, his body becoming a shield between her and danger. The first attacker struck fast, the blade slicing through the air where Teho's head had been a moment before. Teho dodged, his body remembering training from years past. He grabbed the attacker's arm and used the man's own momentum to throw him sideways into the ornamental pond. Water exploded upward as the assassin crashed into it. The second attacker came from the left, blade raised high. Teho seized a metal gardening tool from the ground and blocked the strike. Sparks flew as metal met plasma energy. Teho kicked out hard, his boot connecting with the attacker's knee. The man screamed and fell. The third assassin raised a small weapon and aimed it directly at Princess Nari. Teho did not think. He simply moved. His body placed itself between the weapon and the child. The blast hit his shoulder with tremendous force, spinning him around. Pain exploded through his entire body like fire. His vision blurred and darkened at the edges. But he stayed standing. He refused to fall while Nari was still in danger. Palace guards finally arrived, drawn by the sounds of fighting and Nari screaming. The assassins fled quickly, disappearing into the maze of palace corridors. They knew the layout well, which suggested inside knowledge. Teho's legs gave out. He collapsed onto grass, blood spreading across his maintenance uniform. The last thing he heard before darkness took him was Nari's voice screaming for her mother. Hours later, Teho woke in the palace medical wing. Bright lights hurt his eyes. His shoulder throbbed with deep, intense pain despite the medication. As his vision cleared, he saw Empress Hannah sitting in a chair beside his bed. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. She had clearly been there for a long time. "You are awake," she said softly. Relief flooded her voice. "Nari." Teo's throat felt dry and rough. "Is she safe?" "Completely unharmed. Thanks to you." Hannah's voice cracked with emotion. "Security investigated your background more thoroughly after the attack. They discovered your complete military record. You were Special Forces, highly trained in combat and protection. You never mentioned any of this." "It was another life," Teo said, staring at the ceiling. "A life I left behind deliberately. Why did you leave it? Why hide such skills?" Tejo was quiet for a long moment. "I saw too much death during the wars. I caused too much death with these hands. After mine died, I could not continue that life. I just wanted peace. So I became someone who fixed things instead of breaking them. Someone who cleaned instead of destroyed." Hannah reached out and took his hand gently. Her skin felt warm against his. "You fixed my daughter when she was broken. You saved her life today. Do you understand how much that means to me? Any parent would have done the same thing. But you are not her parent," Hannah pointed out. "No," Tejo agreed, meeting her eyes. "But I care about her deeply. And I care about you too." The words hung in the air between them. Hannah's breath caught. Before she could respond, Captain Soren entered the medical room. His expression was grim and serious. "Your Majesty, we have identified the assassins. They were professionals very expensive to hire. We traced their connections and found something disturbing. The trail leads back to members of your own council." Hannah stood immediately, her entire demeanor changing. The worried woman vanished, replaced by the Imperial Empress. Her voice turned cold as ice. "Show me everything you have found, every piece of evidence." In the war room, intelligence officers had spread out their findings. Financial transfers between hidden accounts, encrypted communications that had been broken and decoded, secret meetings and locations throughout the city. All the evidence pointed in one direction. Chancellor Vex, Admiral Kira said grimly, "All roads lead to him." Dawn broke over the Imperial Palace as Empress Hannah called an emergency council session. Every council member was required to attend. The large chamber filled with confused and worried officials who whispered among themselves, wondering what crisis had prompted such an urgent meeting. Hannah stood at the center, her voice clear and strong. "I bring formal charges of treason, murder, and conspiracy against a member of this council. Chancellor Vex, you are accused of these crimes." Vex stood calmly, showing no surprise or fear. His silver skin seemed to glow under the chamber lights. "These are bold accusations from an empress who has clearly lost the confidence of her people." "I have evidence," Hannah stated firmly. "As do I," Vex replied smoothly. He gestured with his hand. Armed guards entered the chamber, but they were not regular palace security. These were mercenaries, paid soldiers who owed loyalty only to money. "I call for an immediate vote of no confidence. The Empress has shown weakness, emotional instability, and dangerous favoritism toward inferior species. She is unfit to rule." Half the council members stood from their seats, siding with Vex. The chamber erupted into shouting and chaos. Some council members drew weapons. Others tried to leave but found the doors blocked. Admiral Kira pulled her weapon and aimed it at Vex. "This is treason. You are attempting a coup." "This is necessity," Vex replied coldly. "Empress Hannah has failed. I hereby claim regency until Princess Nari comes of age. The Empire requires strength, not sentiment." Tejo stood in the shadows near the back wall, his injured shoulder still in a brace. He assessed the situation quickly with his military training. They were outnumbered. Vex had planned this perfectly, choosing his moment carefully. But Vex had made one critical mistake. He had underestimated human unpredictability and creative thinking. Tejo quietly activated his communicator. "Captain Soren, execute the plan now." Suddenly, every screen and holographic display in the chamber lit up simultaneously. Images appeared showing Vex's secret communications with the assassins who had attacked Nari. Financial records scrolled past, revealing massive amounts of stolen money. Encrypted messages appeared, decoded and readable, discussing illegal activities. Then the final piece appeared. Video footage from Emperor Kale's shuttle, recovered from deep space salvage. The footage clearly showed deliberate sabotage. Someone had tampered with critical systems before the Emperor's final flight. That evidence is fabricated. Vex shouted, his calm demeanor finally cracking. This is a desperate lie. The encryption signatures match your personal security codes, Tejo said, stepping forward from the shadows. Your own protection protocols prove that these communications are authentic. You killed Emperor Kale because he discovered you were stealing from the Empire. He was going to expose you, so you murdered him. You are just a human janitor. Vex screamed, losing all composure. Your word means nothing in this chamber. But Imperial data forensics does mean something, Admiral Kira said coldly. Our best analysts have verified every piece of this evidence. It is all real. The council members who had supported Vex began backing away from him slowly. His mercenaries looked at each other uncertainly, realizing they were on the losing side. One by one, they lowered their weapons. Vex made one final desperate move. He pulled a concealed plasma pistol from inside his robes and aimed it directly at Empress Hannah's head. If I cannot rule, then no one will. Tejo moved faster than anyone thought possible for an injured man. Years of combat training overrode pain and exhaustion. He crossed the distance in 3 long strides and tackled Vex hard. The weapon discharged, but the shot went wild, hitting the ceiling. They crashed to the floor together, struggling for control of the gun. Tejo had trained for exactly this kind of close combat. The Velturans rarely engaged in physical fighting, preferring distance weapons and technology. Within seconds, Tejo had twisted the weapon from Vex's grip and pinned him face down on the floor. Palace guards rushed forward and restrained Vex with energy cuffs. It is over, Hannah said quietly, looking down at the man who had murdered her husband. 1 week later, Vex stood trial before the full Imperial Court. The evidence presented was overwhelming and undeniable. He was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to life imprisonment on Calto 7, a harsh mining colony at the edge of known space. Several other council members who had supported him resigned in disgrace. Some faced criminal charges of their own. The Imperial Court was shaken to its foundation, but Hannah's authority was now unquestionable. She had faced conspiracy, assassination attempts, and an attempted coup. She had survived and emerged stronger. In the royal gardens that evening, Tejo sat by the fountain, his arms still healing. Princess Nari ran up and hugged him carefully, avoiding his injured shoulder. Everyone says you are a hero, she said, smiling brightly. I just did what needed to be done. Nothing heroic about it. Empress Hannah approached them, her expression soft in the fading light. The council has approved a new position, Ambassador of Human Velturan Relations. The role requires someone who understands both cultures and has proven loyalty beyond any doubt.